Okay, good evening and welcome to the Whiskey Wall. I'm your host, Executive Bourbon Steward Mark Patton, with our next whiskey. So hunting in Korea is not to me is not as fun as hunting in the States. 한국에서는 진짜 증류소 없고 there's no distilleries here to visit, and the shops are pretty much linked to the same distribution channels. So you don't have big shops that have their own buying power like Total Wine or Specs. 한국에서 뭐 가장 큰 샵이라고 하면 아마 요즘에 잘 생긴 그 Total Wine, Wine and More 신세계에서 관리하는 Wine and More는 지금 계속 커지고 있고, 근데 진짜 buying power 크고 여기저기 다 이제 모아놓을 수 있는 샵이 한국에서는 거의 없다고 볼 수 있으니까 위스키 헌팅이 그 사냥의 재미는 없어요. So it's a little challenging. But I was in Itaewon in February or March, before the COVID shut us all down. And I was at OK Wine, which is right there, not far from the Sobangsal. And I saw a bottle that said Bandwagon Bourbon. So what is this? And it looks like this. And it was on sale. 그래서 그냥 뭐 판매가로 그냥 bourbon이라서 한번 그냥 궁금해서 사왔는데 영국에 보니까 자리는 거의 없어요. There's almost no information on this. And then I looked at the label. I actually did look at the label before I brought it home. And it says, produced by Sodica NV. Sodica NV. What company is that? 잘 모르는 회사이고. Demerstrat 9, Belgium. I'm like, okay, how can this be bourbon if it's in Belgium, right? 벨지움에서 bourbon 그 합법적으로 벨지움에서 bourbon 만들 수 없는 거잖아요. bourbon은 미국 상품이니까. So you cannot make bourbon in Belgium. Well, it was the effort of this gentleman here. And I don't know if he's popped. I know he reshared our advertisement on his Instagram, so he knows we're talking about him. 우리가 얘기하겠다고 알고 계시는데 이분이 그 옛날 그 동유럽에서 계속 기어고 사는 사람이고, 진짜 스카치 위스키인지 수입할 수 없을 때부터 계셨으니까 위스키에 좀 굶는 사람이래요. 그래서 이제 그 나라 경계가 이제 열고 나서 스코틀랜드 가서 위스키 배우고 지금 거의 20년 동안 동유럽 쪽으로 위스키를 소개하고 판매하고 계세요. 바도 운영하셨고 직접 스코틀랜드 가서 직접 위스키를 배워하는데 리투아니아, 슬로베니아, 라트비아 그런 나라에서 바텐더는 교육하고 계세요. 그래서 스코치 위스키를 수입하고 있지만 한번 그 시장에 맞는 버번 위스키가 필요하다고 해서 미국 가서 연구하다가 그리고 관계를 맺어가지고 이 밴드웨건 위스키 만들기 시작했어요. So this is MGP. The bottler is Sodico NV from Belgium. Mash bill 60% corn, 36% rye, 4% barley malt, and it's bottled at 41.3% alcohol. 도수가 41.3도, 매시 빌은 옥수수 60%, 호밀은 36%. 그래서 제가 정리하는 정의로 25% 이상이 호밀이면 제가 high rye라고 표현합니다. So my own threshold for high rye is 25% or more rye is a high rye. So this one is 36%, it's a high rye, 4% barley malt, and it's marketed as a straight bourbon. So that means it has to be aged at least 2 years. because 최소한 숙성 연도가 최소 2년인데 회사에서 언제 얼마 동안 숙성한지 공유는 안 하지만 방법은 숙성한 원액은 미국에서 통째로 수입해서 벨기에 병입을 하다가 그 다음에 뭐 리투아니아, 라트비아, 슬로베니아 그런 나라에 이제 수입을 하시는 거예요. So he's creating a whole new thing in this product, and now we have it in Korea. And I haven't even tasted it yet. So let's get a scent on this. 일단 향 좀 보자. Let's nose this. And when you nose this, what do you get on the nose for Bandwagon bourbon? When here's a cool tip for whiskey. If you are tasting a bunch of whiskeys, whiskey 여러 종류 이제 동시에 이제 향 맡고 계속 시음하고 있으면 코가 피곤할 수 있으니까 코 향 그 후각 이제 resetting 하려면, if you want to reset your sense of scent, smell the inside of your elbow like that. Assuming you don't spray cologne in the inside of your elbow. So you should get your own funk. It'll reset your nose. Butterscotch, okay, butterscotch pudding. There is a sweetness to this. Straw, okay. 우리가 정확한 표현보다 그냥 막 다 느끼고 계신 거. 우리가 정보 자료 없으니까, 이거 평가된 적이 없으니까, I have not been able to find one like thorough review of this online. I think mostly because the market is not an English market. It's not an English speaking market, and I don't read Eastern European languages. So I am reminded of my best friend in high school. His mom every year used to make traditional Russian tea cakes for Christmas. And so they're very dry, they're very floury, so that they're not risen, they're just like a little hard lump of dough that are baked and then rolled in powdered sugar. So they're very slightly sweet, very they're just these little lumps of flour. Oh, here we go. So now it's popping in. Peanuts, floral, straw, sour, fruity, dry leaves, okay. So Russian tea cakes like corn syrup and a very light rye bread, not that thick pumpernickel rye, but a really light rye bread. Okay, so thank you for that input. Let's taste it. That's actually quite nice. I'm tasting it live for the first time. I did not try to try this ahead of time. I wanted to give a first impression. Let me see the chat again. So what are we? You can on the chat. You can come back to chat to share your tasting notes. Okay, yeah, liquor stores in Lithuania are pretty boring. I can imagine. That's quite pleasant. And for me, it's very nutty. How about you?
Spicy.
Spicy. There's the spices are there, but and this is why we want to save some. So you got your Rebel Yell and your Bandwagon, and then later on the Dry Fly. So compared to the Rebel Yell, I don't get any grass on the Bandwagon on the nose. Yeah, there's the citrus to me is going pretty much down the orange. So I usually go citrus as grapefruit, orange, lemon, and some of the weirder ones go grapefruit, which I really like. Yeah, that's like the IPA grapefruit direction. And then Scotch mostly, for me, when Scotch has citrus, it's lemon. And this kind of goes right down that middle road of bourbon. A little orangey, a little apple pie. Okay, so what's left of our bottle here? Where'd it go? So what's left of our bottle? We've got a decent amount left. A future project coming up really soon is going to be cocktail comparisons, and because Mr. Dinda designed this as a cocktail base, or the bartenders could use it as a sipping bourbon or a cocktail bourbon, we'll stand up Bandwagon, Rebel Yell, Maker's Mark and Woodford and see how they do in a Manhattan in comparison. So maybe we'll do that live. Maybe we'll do that. Maybe we'll do that face to face. Maybe we'll do that online. But that's a project we'll definitely put on the schedule. 이 버번은 그 딘다님이 바텐더가 잘 쓸 수 있게끔 그냥 마시거나 아니면 칵테일 베이스로 쓸 수 있게 이제 개발한 버번이라서 앞으로 비교 그 칵테일 맨해튼 칵테일에다가 비교 시음 한번 준비하겠습니다. 그때 Maker's Mark, Woodford Reserve, Rebel Yell 그리고 이 Bandwagon은 같은 그 네 가지 버번 같은 맨해튼 레시피 이제 만들어서 비교 시음을 한번 진행하겠습니다. What does this retail for in Korea? I paid less than 4만 won for it. I paid less than 40,000. It was on sale. So maybe it was not a huge discount. So that's about what it is right now. And again, I saw it at OK Wine in Itaewon, and the distributor is a bar. He's a bar distributor, so it's probably going to be relatively easy to find. Okay, the question is, does straight bourbon apply if you are marketing it outside of the USA? The definition straight, so we have to pull these apart. Bourbon is the mash bill recipe primarily. So 51% more corn, new charred oak, new barrels, and straight, there's some elements that are in both definitions of straight whiskey and bourbon. So bourbon has the new charred oak. Straight also has the new charred oak. So if it's a straight rye or a straight bourbon, the container has to be the same. The distillation proof, the barrel entry proof, the barrel has to be, that's all the same. The main difference between the two is is it bourbon or is it rye based on the mash bill, and then straight is it has to be aged in the new charred barrel at least 2 years. If it's younger than 4 years, it must have an age on the bottle somewhere. And with our Bandwagon, I believe I think I had to ask them because the labeling. My guess is that since the label is done in Belgium, they follow the qualifications so that nobody in the U.S. would sue them for putting bourbon on it, but that Belgium probably doesn't care. So that the Belgian authorities probably would not say, "Where's your age statement?" 그래서 그거는 이제 나라 사이에 그 이제 합의해야 되는데. 다른 나라에서 버번이라고 사용하면 미국에서 금방 소송 걸어요. They come after really fast. 근데 자세한 거는 그거 이제 증명할 수 있는데 자세한 거는 뭐 2년 이상 뭐 2년에서 4년 안에 뭐 정확하게 몇 개월 몇 년 숙성한 것이 미국 정부는 그건 이제 뭐라고 안 할 것 같은데 그 벨기에에서는 상관 안 할 것 같아요. So does it apply? The question is, does it apply? I don't think I don't think using is going to get them in trouble because they can probably say, yeah, it was 2 years old when we got it. It already made the cut. It already made the threshold for 2 years. Okay, so I'm very pleasantly surprised by that because unknown. Things that I can't like find the distiller and so forth, but or sometimes you wonder what you're going to get. But that's a quite pleasant product. I would buy it again. And we will revisit Bandwagon. It doesn't have a long finish, but it has a finish. The finish is nice and rounded. And there's not much of a burn, but it's pleasantly just warm. So let's go back to our info cards. Now, since this has not been tasted again, I'll just review it. 요약하자면 41.3% ABV, 60% corn, 옥수수 60%, rye 36%, barley malt, mega 4%, at least 2 years. So, yeah, that's Bandwagon.